Help but think that if I had not contacted KARE 11, would we even be here today discussing this?
In the wake of a KARE 11 investigation uncovering tens of millions in fraud, a shakeup today at the Department of Human Services. A top official now terminated, and a new executive order signed by Governor Walz targeting fraud. We have team coverage tonight. Danny Spiewak has been hearing from lawmakers about the governor's action and what comes next. But we begin with AJ Legault, who has the latest developments in his housing hustle investigation. AJ?
Yeah, Julie, for months we've been exposing systemic fraud in the state's Housing Stabilization Program, a program aimed at helping homeless people find housing. Today we learned the assistant commissioner in charge of that program has been terminated. At a fiery Capitol hearing, lawmakers grilled state officials about why they were slow to act when warned about fraud repeatedly. They cited KARE 11's findings and heard powerful testimony from an exploited program client named Rachel Lean, who helped our investigative team bring this story to light. Now, we also learned today what DHS's new Inspector General has uncovered.
Within days of my story airing in May, a senior investigator finally called me back. I can't help but think that if I had not contacted KARE 11, would we even be here today discussing this?
They saw payment to dead people, fake meetings, forged signatures, bribes, phantom services, kickbacks, fly-by-night companies. Not difficult things to see.
We're seeing webs or rings of connected providers that are working together to commit fraud. I've seen indications of fraudulent AI-generated healthcare records. There are entire agencies as opposed to individual employees committing fraud. That means that fraud is the business model.
Is the business model, he said. The new DHS Inspector General, James Clark, also said so far 115 companies have been terminated from being able to bill Medicaid while investigations play out, and revealed that those 115 companies billed taxpayers a combined total of more than $100 million. Now, DHS's acting commissioner said she was unable to comment on the termination of the assistant commissioner who oversaw the HSS program, but she told me in a recent interview that if they found evidence that required an employee be held accountable, that they would take action. Julie.
And just to be clear, that's the first state employee we've seen fired because of this massive fraud.
That is our understanding. Now, DHS won't say that it is because of the fraud. They say they can't comment, but he was terminated the day before this big fraud hearing, and he was in charge of the HSS program.
What about all these people that committed the fraud? What happens to them?
Well, from the State House, attention now certainly going to be turning to the courthouse. A federal grand jury we know was meeting just last week, and that really tells us that indictments are likely imminent.
All right. Thank you, AJ.
Yeah.
Danny Spiewak continues our team coverage from the Capitol with a closer look at the governor's executive order today and reaction pouring in from state lawmakers. Danny?
Well, the governor's executive order issued this morning directs state agencies, including DHS, to take a number of different actions to prevent fraud in state agencies. While some lawmakers say it's a start, they say it doesn't go far enough.
All right, therefore.
On the same morning that DHS officials testified before the House Fraud Oversight Committee,
and I am appearing today to continue to collaborate.
Governor Walz issued an executive order on preventing fraud. The actions include directing DHS to increase public transparency around fraud prevention efforts, to strengthen reviews of providers at high risk of committing fraud, and to disenroll some providers who haven't billed Medicaid in the past 12 months. But perhaps the most significant item in the executive order creates a statewide Office of Inspector General Coordinating Council, bringing together law enforcement and inspectors general within different agencies to meet monthly and share information.
The phrase "too little, too late" came to mind.
Republican Senator Michael Kroon co-sponsored a bill in the legislature this past session to set up a statewide Office of Inspector General that, unlike the council created in the executive order, would have actual investigative power to look into fraud across state government.
It will be legislation put into law. It will establish a brand new office that will have oversight over all of the agencies statewide.
With the help of DFL co-sponsor Senator Heather Gustafson, the bill passed the Senate with broad bipartisan support.
There's a lot of work to be done, and we need everybody at the table.
However, the legislation stalled because of concerns from House DFL leadership over the costs and structure of a statewide OIG. Still, Gustafson welcomed the governor's newest executive order.
I am excited that we are moving in the right direction. I am very happy to hear that the governor is convening his agency heads.
It is important to point out the politics involved in this issue. Of course, Governor Walz issued his executive order this morning, shortly before the hearing from the Fraud Oversight Committee started in the House. That committee on fraud is led by Representative Kristen Robbins. She is a Republican hopeful for governor. She's running for the nomination on the Republican side. Governor Walz, of course, announcing his reelection campaign just yesterday. So fraud, an issue that is going to remain a central theme on the campaign trail. Back to you.
I was going to say everyone trying to grab a headline this morning, but this definitely is something that people in the state care about, and they will have to talk about it on the campaign trail.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. One of those top issues that'll kind of define the campaign in some ways.
Absolutely. All right, Danny, thank you.